Contracts 101 Urbana Contract Basis. My name is Hannah Richmond. I'm a coordinator in the Contract Services Office. My contact information is listed on the screen, so if you have any questions, please feel free to call or email after the presentation. You may type questions in the question box at any time, and that's in the far right-hand panel, and we're going to address those questions at the end of the presentation. All information in this presentation is specific to the Urbana-Champaign campus and those contracts processed through the Contract Services Office. We will not be addressing processes for contracts that go through OSP, OTM, or other campus contract processing offices. Can everyone hear me okay? If you could press the button by the number 2 on your screen, that'll indicate that everyone can hear me just fine. There we go. I see some hands going up there. I'm going to lower those hands. Thank you. Again, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and type those in the question box at any time, and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. So during this presentation, we will define a contract, explain routing, approval, and signature processes, and identify resources and contacts for questions. What is a university contract? It's an agreement between the university and one or more other parties that creates obligations that are legally recognizable or enforceable. If a document obligates the university in any way, it should be in writing and signed by proper university officials. Contracts can come in many different forms. The substance of a document, not its name, determines whether it is an enforceable contract. Other terms for a contract may be memorandum of understanding or agreement, a hold harmless agreement, a release, a waiver, or a non-disclosure agreement. An MOU is evidence of a contract that will be made later, or an agreement to agree. It often contains all the material elements of a contract. It's very common in international arrangements, and they follow the same rules and processes as contracts. These types of agreements should be routed, reviewed, approved, and signed like all other university contracts. An appropriate use of an MOU would be an intra-university document describing an internal arrangement between two departments or units. Intra-university documents don't require OBFS review or approval and do not require comptroller's signature. We're often asked how to write an MOU, and while there isn't an official university MOU template, we often suggest including the basics of the arrangement, the who, what, when, why, and how. A contract is an agreement, so the parties should agree. The terms must be clear so everyone knows what they are supposed to be agreeing to. And generally, you can't look to correspondence and emails to explain a contract. A detailed or clear scope of work is critical to an enforceable event. Now that we know what a contract is, what elements does it need to contain? The Board of Trustees of the university is the legal entity that has the power to enter into contracts. All contracts must have this line. Readers need to have a clear understanding of the proposed activity just from reading the contract. Are things clear to someone who isn't technical or not an expert in your field? You should describe the activity in detail. A contract should have both start and end dates, and indefinite contracts are often not permitted. The university practice is a 10-year max. The document should discuss if anything is being exchanged or if we are exchanging goods or services in lieu of cash. The contract should include terms relating to cancellation. What happens if one party cancels? Is notice required? And what happens to the money at the time of cancellation? The agreement should also contain language about breach. Are there consequences for breaching the terms? What are they, and who will enforce them? Contracts must be amenable to both parties. The terms must be clear so everyone understands exactly what they are agreeing to. If there is an obligation of some sort, both parties must be obligated. The contract should specifically lay out the duties and responsibilities of the parties. There are certainly problematic elements that we see over and over, but they don't have to be deal breakers. We have strategies and alternate language that we can propose, and in the majority of cases, we can work through the language successfully. Choice of forum, venue, and governing law are all terms relating to where any disputes will be heard and what law will apply. All claims against the university must be heard in the Illinois Court of Claims, which provides a cap on liability. Accepting binding arbitration puts the university at risk because we lose the liability cap provided by the Court of Claims. The university is a superior sovereign and is not subject to local regulations. Any agreement to be subject to local laws, rules, regulations, and ordinances may constitute a waiver of sovereign immunity. If a contract allows for cancellation at any time, what impact does that have on us? Did we already expend time, money, and effort? If we need to cancel, can we afford the penalty for that? And insurance. Is insurance required for us? Does it conform with our self-insurance program? And what insurance does the other party need to have? The university will not agree to indemnity provisions that attempt to shift the financial risk of third-party liabilities from the culpable party or parties onto the university's shoulders. The university generally will not agree to pay another party's litigation defense costs. In limited cases, the university may agree to provide contractual indemnity against liabilities, costs, and expenses only to the extent they are covered by its program of self-insurance and arise from the acts or omissions of its employees, trustees, and agents in the discharge of their official university duties. Indemnification language should always be reviewed by an OBFS contract coordinator who may consult with university counsel. Damages are a monetary settlement awarded to a party that is injured through a breach of contract. Its compensation usually monetary for injury to goods, persons, or property. And if any part of the contracted activity involves the creation of something or the use of something created, like training materials, academic texts, websites, or other supplemental materials, the terms must spell out exactly who owns the intellectual property and at what time. Is it jointly owned? And when is that ownership transferred? The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, guarantees students access to their educational records and prohibits dissemination of their records without the student's consent. The university must comply with FERPA, which could include loss of federal funding if we do not comply. We run into FERPA concerns in contracts for software or other electronic systems that students use that may house or transmit student identification records. Agreements will often contain confidentiality provisions when the other party will be sharing proprietary or confidential information. The university requires that any confidential information be marked or clearly identified as confidential at the time of the disclosure if it is orally disclosed. The university is subject to the Illinois Freedom of Information Act. While the university will work closely with a contracting party to protect its proprietary information, the university must retain all authority to determine what should and should not be disclosed, because ultimately it is the university that must comply with FOIA under penalty of law. If you have questions about any of the terms in your agreement, the CSO or Contract Services Office website contains a page describing contract review essential questions, considerations, and common issues. It is a great resource. So now that we know what goes into a contract, what happens next? A fully executed contract must be in place before goods or services are provided and before money is exchanged. A contract must be signed by the comptroller or his designee, and amendments are subject to the same rules as contracts. We will be addressing processes for customers that are not using the Illinois Contract System, or ICS. Users requiring more information about ICS can go to the ICS resource page, and we have a link for that at the end of the presentation. For information on how to get started or to get more information about the Contract Approval Routing Form, or CARF, the OBFS Forms page is a great resource. You can find the revenue generating and procurement templates there as well. The CARF is campus specific, so please be sure to choose the Urbana campus form. If you have questions about how to fill out the CARF, the CSO website has step-by-step instructions for how to complete it. Who signs the CARF? So the unit head signs the CARF for all contracts regardless of the dollar amount. For contracts with a total value of $50,000 or more, the dean or director will sign. And for contracts with a total value of $150,000 or more, the vice president, chancellor, or vice chancellor will sign. If dean or director approval is delegated, the unit must maintain documentation of such delegation. For UA units, the executive director approval at $50,000 or above may be delegated. In ICS, delegation happens via proxy functionality. The signature or electronic approval of the next higher level administrator for a given contract negates the need for approval at a lower level. If a unit head is unavailable, you can receive the next level higher approval. A dean or director approval would negate the unit head approval, and a vice chancellor satisfies both lower-level approvals. Now that the CARF is complete, how can you process an agreement using the revenue-generating templates? The revenue-generating agreements are used when the university is being paid to provide goods or services to an outside organization. The Revenue-Generating Services Agreement under $10,000 is a standard university-wide template. Any unit on the campus can use it. A university or a unit head may sign on behalf of the comptroller if there are no changes to the template by either party. A CARF would not need to be completed, and the document would not need to be routed for review. Who is your unit head? A unit head is defined by OBFS policy as a department head or higher. Some units do not have department heads. Some small colleges do not have departments. When there are only college-level offices for administration, the signature should be that of the dean or associate dean as unit head. When a unit head signs the template, they first sign the Walter K. Knorr on the top line, and then sign their own name on the second line. The revenue-generating agreement over $10,000 is listed below the under $10K template. Revenue-generating agreement $10,000 or more is a standard university-wide template that can be used on any campus. In contrast to the under $10,000, the CARF must be completed and the document must route for review. A comptroller delegate will sign the RGAs over $10K. If you are looking for procurement templates, you can also find those on the OBFS Forms page. If you have any questions on how to complete or use the procurement templates, please contact the Urbana Purchasing Office. Standard universal templates are designed to be very broad and very general. There are cases where they are a great fit and work well, but however, we have a lot of very unique activities and projects on this campus that require a template that is written more specifically to the subject matter. The Contract Services Office can create custom contracts on an as-needed basis, or if you have a recurring activity, we can create a custom template. The terms and conditions of custom templates are pre-approved, which allows for an expedited review process. If you have a situation that you think you can need a custom contract or a template, please contact the Urbana CSO at uillinois.edu. The Assistant Vice President for Business and Finance may authorize a unit head or other designated employee to execute in the name of the comptroller unaltered unit-specific templates for amounts less than $10,000. That authorization must be in writing. Unit heads or their designated employees will sign the comptroller's name and their own name on these unit-specific contract templates. Units must retain a copy of all contracts executed using this authorization. The comptroller's signature delegation cannot be further delegated to another employee. Please note, if changes are made to a unit-specific template, the contract cannot be executed by the unit head or designated employee. Instead, the contract must be submitted with the appropriate fully signed CARF to the Contract Services Office for the comptroller's signature. The preference is always to use the university contract form because the terms and conditions are favorable to the university and have been pre-approved by University Council. This allows for expedited review and execution. It is acceptable to sign other parties' contracts if necessary, but they will need to be reviewed and vetted by appropriate offices, and some language may need to be negotiated, which means it may take a little longer to execute. A contract that is processed in purchasing will route differently than a contract processed in the Contract Services Office, or OSP, and will receive comptroller's signature from different delegates. This CSO example assumes a pre-approved template with no changes. The unit obtains client signature, signs, and attaches the completed CARF and sends to CSO. The CSO delegate reviews and signs for comptroller, returns the fully executed copy to the unit, and the unit provides the fully executed copy to the client. In contrast, this is a piece of what the process looks like for an other party or non-standard contract review. The contract coordinator would prepare a red line of the document and then decide whether the agreement needs legal review, insurance review, or other administrative review. The agreement would flow through the appropriate offices and then back to the unit for review. If the unit is okay with the changes made, the agreement routes to the other party for review. If the unit or other party makes additional changes or rejects our proposed changes, the agreement could go back through another review by legal, risk management, or other administrative offices until both parties agree to the final changes. There are many circumstances requiring council approval. Documented approval doesn't always mean a signature. It could be in the form of emails or name and/or signature on the CARF or ICS workflow. Some contracts may need to be reviewed by University Council for legal form and validity prior to being signed. Documented approval must clearly show that Council approval was received prior to signature of the Comptroller or authorized signatory. Required by the State Finance Act, University Council and President must approve any contract $250,000 or above and any amendment that increases the value of the original contract either to or over $250,000 in a fiscal year. These approvals can be delegated, and we'll talk more about signature delegation later. If approvals are required, OBFS offices will obtain these approvals. A unit head may execute certain standard unaltered contract templates less than $10,000 in the name of the comptroller if it's a contract for services under $10,000 or RGA under 10K template from the OBFS website, or if it's a custom template for which the unit head has been given specific written authorization by the AVP for Business and Finance. A University Comptroller is the General Fiscal Officer of the Board of Trustees and is authorized to approve and execute on behalf of the Board contracts not expressly requiring prior Board approval. President and Chief Legal Counsel may delegate contract approval authority. The Comptroller may delegate contract execution authority. Delegates who sign contracts on behalf of the Comptroller must have express authority to do so. They are responsible for reviewing contract terms and conditions, as well as ensuring all required approvals have been received and legal review is complete. If you are not an authorized delegate, the university is not a party to the agreement unless it decides to ratify your unauthorized act. Apparent authority does not generally apply to transactions involving the state of Illinois. If authorized university officials decline to ratify a contract, the other party's remedy for any breach or recovery on a contract claim will be from the person who signed without authority, in other words, from you. OBFS Comptroller delegates are generally applying facsimile signatures to all contracts now. OBFS may recommend inclusion of specific legal language regarding counterparts or facsimile signatures. If the other party cannot accept a facsimile signature from the university, we can still provide a wet or original signature. A digital signature, in contrast, is a type of electronic signature that contains an element that looks like a manual signature but is just a generic or universal image rather than a reproduction of an authentic signature. Digital signatures involve the use of an encryption system in which one key, the private key, creates the signature and another key, the public key, verifies that signature. The state prohibits us from using or accepting these kinds of digital signatures. A contract is fully executed when it bears the signatures of all parties obligated by the contract. What happens to a contract after it's fully executed? All fully executed university contracts are stored electronically in ICS. The contract numbers are automatically assigned by the system. The University Contract Records Office, or UCRO, serves as the official contract repository for the Board of Trustees serving all 3 campuses. UCRO completes all filings required by the state of Illinois. If you need a copy of a previously executed agreement, you can contact UCRO at contractrecords@uillinois.edu. If you're looking for more information about contracts at the university, the next few slides will list resources to help you. The CSO website is a great resource for questions about any kind of agreement, not just those processed through our office. The contract types page shown here allows you to expand the types to see more info about a certain type of agreement, including who to contact for more information. The Contract Services Office contact information is listed here. If you have a question or a concern about anything, you can use our group email address. And if you have questions and you just want to look for some information, our website is listed there as well. The ICS resource page is a resource for those of you using the Illinois contract system. The OBFS contracts form page, again, is a great resource for those templates and for the CARF. And then the OBFS policies and procedures manual will answer any questions that you may have about the policies regarding contracts. Other resources include the Office of Sponsored Programs, the Office of University Counsel, University Office of Risk Management, and Urbana Purchasing. If you have any questions, please feel free to type those questions in that question box, and we will get those answered right now. Anyone have any questions? There we go. Maria Thompson, can we get a copy of the PowerPoint? So I think we're going to post this webinar on the Contract Services website. We are recording it right now, and so hopefully we'll get a copy of that posted as soon as we can. And we're going to look at trying to get you a copy of those slides as well. When do we use your office versus purchasing? So our office is for agreements that are no funds or revenue generating agreements. So when the university is taking money in, if you are making a purchase, you would route those contracts through the purchasing office. Any other questions? Nope, there we go. Do you have examples of cases that went wrong that we can provide to our faculty as lessons?
Okay, I guess that's to me. And this is Nicole Stewart. I think that we don't generally keep a file of the things that went terribly wrong. However, I think I understand the intent of this question, and what I would say in general is that if you're looking for some specific resources, some tailored guidance, something that can be used in a specific scenario for a specific audience within your unit or college, CSO would always be glad to work with you to develop something that you can use for that purpose. So if the resources that are available publicly are not quite what you're looking for, we would be glad to work with you on something custom that will better address your needs. So just shoot an email to our Urbana CSO at uillinois.edu email address, and we'll be glad to work with you on that.
Okay, next question. Is it true that we now have to submit an invoice from the vendor when submitting a contract through TEM?
I'm not sure that we are really the best ones to answer that question. I would say any question related to documentation required for payments made through TEM should probably at least start with the university payables. And certainly we work closely with them regarding transactions that are related to contracts that may go through our office, and they also work very closely with the purchasing staff for payments that may be associated with contracts that purchasing has handled. But I would encourage you to start with payables, and then they can certainly consult us if there's a question or a specific issue that needs to be addressed.
Any update on the data export of contracts and contract numbers from ICS? When will this option be available?
So I presume that this question is about the data warehouse. When will ICS data be available in the warehouse? I really wish that I had an answer for you to that question. But unfortunately, we've not been given a specific date yet. Our data, our needs assessment has been done, and everything has been provided to decision support. It's just we got bumped by another product, so all I know is that we're still in the queue, and I don't have a specific date for our go live yet.
Will the questions and responses also be posted on the CSO website?
That's a great question, and I think that's definitely something that we could consider and work with our training group in OBFS to make that part visible. So thank you for that suggestion, and we'll definitely take it to heart.
I was asked today if we could develop a fill-in-the-blank contract for our sponsors for a competition. Is this possible, or do we just use their documents and go through ICS?
I think I would need to know more about this scenario. More about what the competition is and what you mean by sponsors. This sounds like a great question to actually take offline and respond to outside of the webinar. So I hope that the person who submitted this question will contact Hannah directly or contact us through the Urbana CSO email address. and we would be glad to discuss that in greater detail with you.
Once a custom template has been approved by legal for a department, can it be altered?
Good question, and the answer is yes and no. So can it be altered by an end user in a university unit? No. All of the templates that we create that are standardized and get that pre-approval stamp are locked for editing by our end users. However, there certainly are cases where a contracting party may ask for a little change, a little tweak. Often those changes are reasonable and can be accepted, but they have to go through an OBFS contract processing office for approval, and those individuals, the coordinators and the buyers in the various contracting offices, and as well as the attorneys and university counsel, are the only individuals who actually have the ability to make those changes to those template documents.
Are all contracts at this time required to go through ICS, and will old contracts be added to ICS?
That's a little bit of a tough one to answer, so let me try to answer this in the most general and basic way possible without getting way into the weeds here. So not every unit or college within the University of Illinois will use ICS to initiate and route their contracts. However, all OBFS contract processing offices actively use the system, and so anytime a contract routes to CSO or to Urbana Purchasing, the staff in those offices are creating that contract in the system. And regardless of where it starts, all university contracts are being stored in the repository, which is now in ICS. But will old contracts be added to ICS? I think in general, all contracts that were executed since the University Contract Records Office went live in the system, which was in the summer of 2012. Those records exist in ICS. However, they may not be accessible to every single person who has access to the system. So there are various levels of security and different types of levels of access. Contracts that were executed in our previous system, the legacy system, are accessible to key staff, so University Contract Records Office staff, Office of University Counsel, Board of Trustees Office. There's a legacy contract data migration project in process. However, that data will always be restricted, and so you'll always need to work through one of those 3 key offices to obtain that kind of information, and I would definitely recommend University Contract Records Office as your best starting point for any questions or requests related to contract documents.
Can there be the option to query saved searches at a specific time instead of having to push a button?
I think if your question is specific to performing a search or a query in ICS, that's definitely something that we can help you with and give you some steps. There is a way to save a search in the Illinois contract system so that you can access the elements of that search, the parameters, without having to build it over and over again. Again, that's probably something better to address offline outside of the webinar, but I hope that you'll give us a call or shoot us an email, and we'll be glad to provide you with the step-by-step instructions that you need for doing that in the system.
Any other questions? Okay, I don't see anything coming through, so I thank everyone for attending, and we will get this posted to the Contract Services website as soon as we can.
And we'll also send an email out to the BMG listserv and to all of the attendees from the 2 webinars that we've done live to let you know when that's available and where you can access it.
Thank you.